Moon Knight, Episode 4, The Tomb. So, in the previous episode, we had Layla and Steven discover the location of Ament's tomb by using a Magi's cloth to kind of figure out this constellation. However, they had to use Khonshu's powers to turn the stars back 2,000 years, and doing so has angered the rest of the gods. So the gods banish Khonshu into a little stone figurine. Steven and Mark lose the Moon Knight's powers, and Steven passes out. So then we see the avatar for, I believe it's Osiris. He's walking with Khonshu's stone figure, and eventually he comes into this room with a bunch of other stone figures, and he sets it up in its own little cubbyhole, and he walks away. So Khonshu is now banished with some other gods. I wonder who the other gods are. But we cut back to Layla and Steven. Steven is unconscious. He was knocked out when the powers of Khonshu was taken from him. And eventually they see this truck showing up in the horizon. And the truck starts shooting at the two. And so Layla pushes Steven down the sand dune and she rolls down after him. And she sees her car in the distance, so she runs and hides inside as the enemy truck comes down and starts searching for whoever it was that they were shooting at. They saw someone running, but they didn't really get a good look. So they see the truck that Layla is hiding in. They decide to circle it. For some reason, they don't decide to peek inside. They just decide, hey, let's just look at the truck, but let's not look inside the truck. So they don't find Layla, but eventually they discover Steven's unconscious body in the sand. And before they can do anything, Layla lights up a flare to get their attention. They shoot at her some more. She ducks behind the truck. They drive around the truck to try to find her. She pops out and throws a flare onto their ammo case and explodes the two guys and the truck. So, Layla saves the day. She goes to Steven, wakes him up, and then eventually we cut to the two of them driving in Layla's truck. It's morning now, and they're heading towards the location of Ament's tomb. And we have them kind of talking with each other for a little bit. Mark wants to transform. Mark wants to take over. Layla even probably says, like, hey, maybe Mark should take over because he has experience with this. And Steven, says, no, like, we promised that when Khonshu leaves, that Mark will leave as well. And then Layla's like, so you made a promise with my husband to leave me? Like, did you guys not even bother asking me? And Steven's like, oh, I guess, maybe we should have. I'm sorry. Layla eventually says it's fine. Like, maybe it's better that you're here because if it was Mark would just want to run away and go lone wolf. And at least with you, like, we're partners. We're working on this together. And Steven agrees. So eventually they find the camp that Arthur and his men were at. It's empty. It's abandoned. Layla and Steven believe that everyone's already inside the tomb trying to find Ament's prison so that they can free her. So Layla and Steven decide to search the camp for some supplies, during which, once again, Mark basically tries to convince Steven to switch places. Steven refuses. Mark accuses Steven of being in love with his wife. Steven just kind of walks off. And then eventually they decide to actually go down into the tomb. And this is when we have a moment between Layla and Steven where Layla leans in to kiss Steven, knowing that it's Steven. And Steven basically blurts out that the reason why Mark was distancing himself from Layla is because Khonshu was threatening to make her his new avatar, and Mark didn't want that kind of life for her. And Layla's kind of shocked. And then Steven leans in to kiss Layla, and she kisses him back. So the two go down into the tomb, and they discover that it's a maze with 6 different points. And that's when Steven uses his knowledge and discovers that the maze is actually in the shape of the Eye of Horus. And the Eye of Horus has different points that represent the different senses. That's when they realize that the avatar for Ament is Ament's voice. So they should use that sense, the sense of, I guess, the tongue, even though the tongue is taste, but I guess tongue, mouth, voice, even though you would think maybe it would be sounds. but whatever. So they're able to discover this room where it looks like a room being used to mummify people. There's like fresh blood and body parts. Well, not body parts, but like body flesh meat on top of this like dissecting table. There's like a tunnel that leads to more blood and bones. It seems like, hey, maybe we shouldn't go down this path because, there's a bunch of bones and blood. Maybe we should see if there's like another path that's not so creepy looking. And he discovers that there's actually a little ledge and maybe there's a path up there. So he goes up there to go check it out, and he discovers that there actually is another tunnel for them to go into. But before they can do anything, this weird creature shows up carrying a body, and Layla hides. And the body it's one of Arthur's like right-hand man. And this like zombie-looking creature basically starts mummifying this guy. It starts cutting open his body, taking out body parts and putting them into jars and stuff. Eventually, he discovers Steven and Layla, and Steven basically tells Layla to make a run for it. I'll try to find you later. And Steven pushes this other sarcophagus that's on the ledge onto the creature and crushes it, and then he runs into the tunnel. And then we have a moment where Layla discovers this like bottomless hole, and there's like this a little tiny walkway to get to the other side. And she's slowly going through, and the floors are kind of like breaking beneath her feet. And eventually she gets to the other side, and she gets attacked either by the same creature or by another one of these zombie creatures. I'm not really sure. But it grabs her, pulls her into the darkness. Layla, there's just like a sound of struggle. Layla runs out. It grabs her again, pulls her back into the darkness again. More sounds of struggle. Layla runs out with one of the creature's arms. The creature tackles her and pins her to the floor and basically tries to use its dismembered arm, like the bone that's sticking out, to try to impale Layla in the face. And Layla is able to eventually pull out a flare, stab it in the face, burn it, and then kick it into the hole. And then she's about to leave when Arthur shows up. He's on the other side, and he can't make it across because not only is the place like too small for him, but Layla walking across has collapsed parts of it. So instead, he starts talking to her. He mentions her father and the death of her father. And Layla stays to hear this story. I don't know why. I guess maybe curiosity killed the cat. You would think that maybe trying to find Amit's, little figurine, her stone prison, might be more important than finding out about the death of your father. But I mean, I guess it does make sense if you love your family, obviously, and you don't know how they passed away other than they were murdered, and that there's a possibility your husband might have been involved. I would think you would want to know. So I guess it makes sense. Anyways, he basically tells her that when he did the judgment on Steven in episode 1, he gets, he saw all the sins and guilt that's in the body. So that includes everything that Marc did. And he basically says that Marc was one of the mercenaries that murdered Layla's father. And so Layla leaves. And that's when more of Arthur's men show up, and they basically say, hey, boss, we found another way to get it, into the tomb. So then we go to Steven, and Steven discovers a giant sarcophagus, and it is the sarcophagus of Alexander the Great. It turns out that Alexander the Great was Amit's last avatar. And so Steven pushes over the lid, and he's trying to discover, okay, where would this Amit's prison thing, where would it be? And he realizes, well, first off, we would try to hide it someplace where grave robbers wouldn't be able to easily find it. Second, Amit's avatars are her voice. So we have this scene where Steven basically pulls the bandages over the mummified body of Alexander the Great around his mouth, grabs the jaw, breaks it open, and then he sticks his hand down Alexander's throat. And then eventually he discovers the prison. He discovers the little stone statue of Amit. And that's when Layla shows up. And Steven's like celebrating, like, hey, we did it, we won, we got to it first. When Layla starts questioning him, like, she asks, like, can he hear me? Can Marc hear me? And she basically starts questioning him like, did you kill my father? And Mark forcefully takes over control and tells her, no, I did not kill your father. And Layla says, but you were there. And Mark admits, yes, I was there. Basically, Mark was a part of a mercenary group. Their leader got too greedy and wanted more and eventually executed all the archaeologists in the area. Mark tried to stop it, and for that, he ended up getting shot as well and left for dead. And that's how he ends up meeting Layla. He basically feels guilty because he's the one that brought the mercenary group to this dig site. So they wouldn't have known where Layla's father was if it wasn't for Mark. So he went to go, apologize to Layla, and I guess he ended up falling in love with her. And yeah, that's how he met. And he decides to keep that whole thing a secret. But now Layla knows. And this kind of annoyed me because I'm like, I get why Layla would want to know, but Mark is even telling her, like, I'll explain everything to you, but we have to get out of here now. We have to go before they show up. Let's go, and I'll explain everything. And you would think, okay, do it. But because Layla stalled for so long trying to get questions out of Mark, Arthur and his men were able to show up in time. And so I believe Mark gives the figure to Layla. But it happens really quick. I can't really remember. But I believe Layla is now in control of the figure. Either way, Mark tells Layla, get out of here, run. I will try to, hold them off. And so he grabs one of the mummified weapons, and Arthur and his men show up with guns while Layla is hiding. Arthur basically kind of tells Mark, like, you're free. Like, I remember when the first time I woke up, the first morning I woke up without Khonshu's voice in my head, and how freeing that was. And now you're free. You don't have to pay attention to Khonshu anymore. He's no longer here. Why don't you join me? And Mark doesn't do anything. He just kind of stands there, and one of the men with guns gets close to him. I never understood this. Whenever you have someone, like you're holding someone hostage with a gun, why would you put yourself within arm's reach of them? You have a gun. You have a projectile weapon. Don't get close to them. But one of the guys gets close to Mark. Mark stabs him to death, throws his axe and kills another one. And before he can pick up a gun and start shooting the rest of Arthur's men, Arthur shoots Mark in the chest. And then we have a slow motion scene where he falls backwards into a pool of water, and then he slowly sinks into it. I will say that the fall is fine. It's super slow-mo and stuff, but the sinking into the water looks kind of terrible. It looks obviously CGI, and it's just because, like, he's falling down, but his legs are bent down when they should be kind of going up. Like, his body and limbs and stuff should be, like, stretched out towards the surface as his body's sinking down. But because his body's bent backwards as he's sinking backwards, it looks really weird. Like, you can obviously tell that this is CGI and stuff. I don't know why you had to CGI this, but even if you did, you could have done a better job. It looks terrible. But yeah, he sinks into the depths, and at first I was like, oh, okay, this is like an interesting cliffhanger to leave it off on. But it's like, no, there's actually more. We have a scene where we see, I believe it's Ethan Hawke is leading this young sidekick through the jungles, and then there's like a skeleton falls and stuff like that, and he's basically like a old school Indiana Jones kind of character. And then it turns out that this is a movie being watched by patients in a psychiatric hospital. We see like one woman, and she's like drawing Khonshu. We see a fish bowl with the fish with one flipper. We see Mark, and Mark is in a wheelchair with his foot strapped to it, holding a action figure of Moon Knight. And basically, I guess it's supposed to give like hints that none of this is real. This is all in his head. There is no Khonshu. There is no Indiana Jones adventures for them. It was just all in his head. He's just a crazy person. And even Layla's there as a patient, and she basically, there's like a bingo going on. She sees that Mark has won, and she takes his card and says, I won. I promise I'll split the loot with you this time. And then eventually, Mark is taken to see his psychiatrist, his shrink, and it is Arthur. We basically have a moment where Arthur is talking with Mark and saying, I'm sorry that you're sedated, but it's because of your own actions. He starts questioning Mark on why he keeps watching this movie, and it's basically like an Indiana Jones knockoff. And as Arthur is talking, Mark is looking around and he sees a painting of the village that Steven woke up in episode 1. He sees a mirror that reflects Arthur's feet, and he sees that Arthur's wearing his Croc sandals that Arthur always wears with the glasses, with the broken glass inside. He sees like Egyptian figures behind him. So eventually, Mark realizes like the last thing I remember is you shooting me, and he thinks, okay, this is all in my head. This is fake. I got to get the hell out of here. He gets out, starts making his escape. He gets chased by the orderlies. Eventually, he ducks into this patient room where there's this person stuck inside a sarcophagus, and Mark pushes over the sarcophagus and reveals Steven in there. And Steven and Mark are happy to see each other. They hug each other, and then they're like, Mark's like, "What's the last thing you remember?" And Steven says, "Arthur shooting us." And Mark's like, "Yes, okay, so I'm not crazy. That actually did happen. We got to get the hell out of here." And here's the interesting thing: as they're making their way out, they run past another room with another sarcophagus with someone trapped inside trying to get out. And they kind of look at it for a while and then they keep running. So I'm wondering if this is supposed to be like a little hint that this is the third figure, the third personality. Because we had it mentioned in the previous episode that the person who murdered the people in the beginning of the episode, it wasn't Steven and it wasn't Mark. So there's hints that there's a third personality. So I wonder if this is another hint that there's a third personality, and I wonder if this third personality is Jake Lockley. I guess maybe we might find out in either episode 5 or 6, because we got 2 more episodes to go. I'm assuming maybe episode 5 is where they would discover Jake, if that is the third personality, because this is like the perfect time to reveal him. But anyways, they leave whoever's inside the sarcophagus, they leave them trapped in there, and they rush towards the exit, and as they open it up, they see an Egyptian goddess that looks like a hippo. And I was like, who the hell is this? I looked it up, and I believe this is Taweret. I probably completely butchered that. But she is a Egyptian goddess of childbirth and fertility. And according to Wikipedia, it says some scholars believe that this practice demonstrates that hippopotamus goddesses facilitated the process of rebirth after death, just as they aided in earthly births. These statues then assisted the deceased passing into the afterlife. So I'm assuming that she's going to be helping them, because it says they facilitated the process of rebirth after death. And since Mark and Steven got shot, I'm assuming that they're dying, and she is the one who's going to help them be reborn, quote unquote. There's another part here in Wikipedia that says, similar to her role in the rejuvenation of the dead, also cannot be overlooked with regards to this epithet. Just as she provided life for the living through physical birth, she also cleansed and purified the dead so they could pass safely into the afterlife. So I'm assuming that she is basically going to help Steven and Mark be, quote unquote, reborn, and that's how they're going to come back to life, is going to be with the help of this Egyptian goddess. But yeah, that's how it ends. It ends with them seeing this really terrible CGI of a humanoid hippo, and them screaming like girls, and then it ends. So I will say, you know what? I did like this episode. I liked the first half a lot more than the second half. I liked the first half with it was like an Indiana Jones adventure, kind of. It reminds me of Indiana Jones as well as Uncharted, like especially the first game, where like you're searching the tombs and you have to look through your notebook at clues and solve puzzles and stuff. That's basically what this first half of the movie was. It was them doing Indiana Jones adventures where they're searching the tomb, they're trying to discover how to get through the maze, finding the Eye of Horus, putting the puzzle pieces together, finding the different rooms, and it was very much straight out of something that you would see in Indiana Jones. I thought the part with Layla questioning Mark, I mean, I understand why she did it, but you would think that she would understand that the fate of the world is literally in their hands right now. Like, they have to stop Arthur. So maybe when Mark tells you, hey, I'll tell you everything you want to know, but now is not the time. Let's get out of here first. Maybe listen to him. The part with the psychiatrist was an interesting twist. I will say that the beginning part took way too long. It was like slowly panning across everything, and after a while, I was just like, all right, just get to the part where we see Mark, because obviously Mark is going to be in here. So let's just get to him already. Like, you're taking way too long going through this whole moment. But other than that, yeah, I thought this was a really good episode. I liked like I said, I liked the Indiana Jones moment. I liked the whole horrifying moment of them witnessing this guy basically getting his stomach cut and his body parts taken out and put into jars while he's still alive. I mean, the guy's not like screaming or anything, but he was kind of moving a little bit when he was still on the table. So yeah, basically he was having his organs pulled out of him while he was still alive. And I was like, okay, that's terrifying and horrifying. So yeah, that was cool. The moments with the zombie kind of creature. It reminded me very much of the movie The Mummy with Brendan Fraser and Indiana Jones and stuff. So yeah, I would say this was a good episode. I don't know if I would say it was better than the previous episode. Like I said, I like the Indiana Jones part a lot, and I wish that this was more of that. But then again, how long can you drag that out, I guess? I will say that the part with the psychiatric hospital had its interesting moments, but it kind of dragged on for too long. But again, it had some interesting moments, mostly the part where they discover another sarcophagus with somebody inside, and they decide not to free that person. I'm assuming, like I said earlier, that that's the third personality. But yeah, this was a good episode. I liked it. So far, this series has been surprisingly good. And I say surprisingly because, I mean, Disney Plus has not really pumped out anything that I've been interested in for a long time now. I think the last Disney movie or even Marvel cinematic thing that I was interested in was Guardians of the Galaxy. And that was kind of it. Everything since then has been like okay, I guess. But the Disney Plus shows have been pretty terrible, at least the parts that I've seen. Like I've seen like little pieces of them here and there, and I've seen like reviews of shows and stuff, and they all seem pretty terrible. So I kind of went into this with low expectations. I was like, okay, this Moon Knight series, it looks and it sounds interesting, and I'm kind of looking to see where it's going. But it's Disney Plus, it's modern day MCU, which has not been great after Endgame. So let's fingers crossed. But it's been surprisingly awesome. Like I've loved every episode so far. I like where the series has been going. We got 2 more episodes to go. Hopefully they can stick the landing. But so far, yeah, I don't really have any complaints with this series. This series has been really good. I guess the complaints would be the nitpicks that I've said in previous videos and the terrible CGI at moments, especially like in this episode with the Egyptian goddess at the end, the hippo. It looks so comical that it's hard to take serious. But there you go. Moon Knight, episode 4, The Tomb. We basically leave the whole Fight Club theme to go into an Indiana Jones theme, and then we end up going back to a Fight Club theme. So, yeah, I guess, but it was good. It was a good episode. I liked it. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed. To see you next time. Take care. Later.